Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi, you're very welcome. This is Reading the Past and I'm Dr. Cat. And this video is going to be released in Premiere format first so that I can make use of that amazing live chat function to watch and chat along with anyone who has been willing and able to make it down. And if that is you, hello, I am so very pleased you could be here. Thank you for joining me. And if you have joined me at this time, which is future me from when I'm filming it, but potentially past me if you are watching after the premiere, which is confusing, I'll give you that. But if you are here in the premiere, for me right now, it's 4 p.m. GMT on Christmas Eve. For those of you who do celebrate, I hope that you have had and are having a very pleasant festive season. I feel that the date deserves a video on a suitably festive topic. So with that in mind, let's take a look at Christmas time at the royal court. Today, we're going to focus on the Tudors, and as we do so, we can take a look at the very special pressies that they received. But before we take a look at today's topic, I want to say an absolutely massive thank you to History Hit for sponsoring another video on this channel. History Hit brings you the stories that shape the world through their award-winning podcast network and online history channel. It's like Netflix, but all history. With History Hit, you can watch hundreds of hours of original history documentaries, anywhere, anytime, on any device. Brought to you by expert historians such as Dan Snow, Professor Susanna Lipscomb, Dan Jones, and more. In addition to already having hundreds of expert-led programmes, they add 2 more every week. History Hit also launch 19 new episodes weekly across 8 podcasts, which includes the world's leading history podcast, Dan Snow's History Hit. As we are already talking about History Hit podcasts, I think it's only fair, just and right that I get to indulge in some shameless self-promotion. As you can see, I had the immense privilege of sitting down with the fabulous Dr. Kate Lister to talk all about trash, how that word has been used through history, and what it might mean for how we use it today. I do hope you'll check it out, and that you will enjoy it when you do. This week, I have really enjoyed watching this new episode in the Great British Houses series. In this one, we explore the history of Ham House and its inhabitants. In this programme, we learn how these people responded to the turbulent events that occurred in the 17th century, as civil war gave way to interregnum, which in turn gave way to the Restoration. Click the link in my description box to find out more and to subscribe to History Hit. As an added bonus, History Hit are offering my viewers a very special discount. If you use the code HISTORYHIT at checkout, you will get 60% off your first 6 months. This generous discount means that you can subscribe to History Hit for less than £3 a month. Thanks again to History Hit for sponsoring this video. But now, let's hop back to Tudor England and see if Santa has left us some treats. Around this time last year, I made a video on the history of Christmas, which I will, of course, be leaving linked. But I still think it's useful for me to offer a reminder, a rundown, if you will, of just how the festive period worked in the past, specifically by looking at significant dates, events, and celebrations. The period before Christmas, both then and now, was, of course, Advent. But the historical Advent, the one that our Tudor forebears knew, doesn't involve getting to open a little numbered door behind which a delicious morsel of chocolate is found for you to snack on every day for the first 24 days of December. And that's because early modern and medieval Advent was an entirely more sombre affair. In many ways, it functions similarly to the period of Lent before Easter. And I say that because, like Lent, Advent is intended to be a period of reflection, prayer, and perhaps most importantly, preparation. In the case of Advent, these preparations were to both celebrate Christ's birth and also to await his return, and thus the final judgment. With this in mind, I think it's perhaps unsurprising that abstemiousness was very much the order of the day during Advent, as indeed it was during Lent. This was to be a period for fasting. Perhaps most significantly for the frankly carnivorous Tudors, this meant that meat was not to be eaten. Now, don't get too excited because they didn't turn vegetarian, and that's because the definition of what meat was during this period is slightly more confusing than it is today. For many, if not most people at this time, fish was not meat, so fast days were fish days. Some would say that only four-legged animals were meat, so that means that poultry doesn't count. And by the Elizabethan period, it seems that veal and game were added to the ranks of potential foods that could be classed as being suitable for fast days, so non-meat options. There was also the option of buying something known as a flesh eater's licence during this period. This was for those who could not or would not deny themselves a meaty feast during a period set aside for fasting. I do also think it's worth flagging up that by the Elizabethan period, these fast days had taken on a drastically different purpose and character and indeed meaning. In the doctrine of the Protestant Reformers, which is a doctrine that Elizabeth's Church of England, broadly speaking, was looking to follow, faith alone stood as sufficient justification, while fasting, on the other hand, was an example of religious works, things that Roman Catholic divines asserted to be absolutely necessary for those hoping to achieve salvation. For the Protestants, works and the reliance upon them was nothing more than superstition. So why are these Elizabethans fasting? And why is their queen, the supreme governor of their Protestant Church of England, enforcing it upon them? Well, an Act of 1563 may well provide the answer, because in this Act, we are told that these fast or fish days were, quote, for the better maintenance and increase of the navy, and not for any superstition, nor for the saving of the soul of man. Put simply, fish days funded the boats of fishermen, which in times of necessity or national danger could and indeed would be repurposed, set to work in defence of the realm. This Advent fast would run through to Christmas Eve inclusive, but Christmas Day was an entirely different proposition, because this was when the celebrations really began. Christmas Day marked the start of the so-called 12 days of Christmas, and this was a time for feasting, singing, dancing, gameplay, pageants, entertainments, and also misrule. Fun was to be found in playing with and usually in inverting the established social order, and so a Lord of Misrule would be selected. This individual would be set to work presiding over the court and all of its celebrations for, in many cases, the full 12 days of Christmas. So this lord would be a kind of make-believe monarch, and they would be given special licence to order people about, and even to address the king or queen without the due respect and reverence that was usually absolutely demanded. For example, at the very start of King Henry VIII's reign, during the Christmas celebrations for his court, Henry's Lord of Misrule cheekily asked the king for money. It is said that Henry found this amusing. However, as the 16th century wore on, the Lords of Misrule and their election was something that fell out of favour, and I do think that the court celebrations would no doubt have been in safer and certainly more organised hands when they were in the control of a person known as the Master of the Revels. This was a court office, a court official, who would be intimately involved with the planning and undertaking of all court entertainments for the rest of the year anyway, so ideally placed to supervise Christmas, I think. But the really big night for performance and partying came at the very end of these 12 days, on Twelfth Night, which I think is probably going to ring bells for a number of reasons, not least because of the work of Shakespeare. If we look at the Shakespeare play by that name, Twelfth Night, we're going to see that the spirit of the season is very much at play. In the comedic world of this drama, we open with a shipwreck, but remember, it's a comedy. So rather than disaster and loss, we see confusion, disorder, inversion, and importantly, humour spring. In the aftermath of this shipwreck, Viola, who thinks that her twin brother Sebastian has been killed in the wreck, is now alone and she believes vulnerable. For her safety, she thus adopts a male disguise and a male name. And in this disguise, she enters the service of one Duke Orsino. Remember that name, it's going to be important in just a moment. But from this point, confusion about identity, misdirected romance, and trickery become the very drivers of this play's drama. But let's leave the world of the play and hop into the real world for a moment, because if we look at the Twelfth Night celebrations of 1601, the real ones, one of Queen Elizabeth I's guests at this time, indeed her guest of honour, was somebody called Virginio Orsini. So, did Shakespeare name his Duke Orsino to flatter someone that his company had been commissioned to perform in front of? Or did it work the other way? Did he co-opt the name of a prominent person in order to lend a frisson to a play that he was still working on? What we do know is that the real Duke did write a letter to his wife, in which he stated that at the Twelfth Night festivities, quote, a comedy was performed, mixed with music and dances. Compelling. But alas, there is, however, no evidence that this letter and this part of this letter describes a performance that would perhaps have been the first one of William Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Instead, the very first extant mention of this particular play in performance refers to it being staged at Candlemas, which was the 2nd of February, in 1602, in the Middle Temple Hall in London. Now, there is one part of Christmas that I haven't got around to mentioning yet, and that is the exchanging of gifts. Today, as I'm sure we are almost all aware, for those who celebrate, gifts are exchanged on either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, depending, I think, on where you come from in the world, or perhaps, as well, your particular faith tradition. But in the Tudor period, gift exchange happened on New Year's Day, so not Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. On this day, the monarch would both give and receive gifts. And I think that it's going to be interesting for us to take a look at some examples of how people who were at court on New Year's Day in Tudor England would deal with the problem of what to buy for the person who had quite literally almost everything. Plus, dangerously, the power and, in many cases we know, the temperament to destroy you if you had the misfortune of displeasing them. To help us in this endeavour, we are lucky enough that we can turn to surviving gift rolls from this period. And the gift rolls are documents that are used to record, quite simply, who gave what, and also who received what in return. Often, the monetary value of the gift was noted down too. Some of these gifts, as we shall see, were clearly intended to be messages that were designed to be read and understood by the recipient, and perhaps also by those watching the gift exchange take place. While other gifts, I think, simply speak volumes because of their luxury, excess, and evident expense. On New Year's Day, 1534, Queen Anne Boleyn gave King Henry VIII, quote, a goodly gilt basin, having a rail or board of gold in the midst of the brim, garnished with rubies and pearls, wherein standeth a fountain, also having a rail of gold about it, garnished with diamonds. Out thereof issueth water, at the teats of 3 naked women standing at the foot of the same fountain. Thrillingly, we have this sketch by Hans Holbein the Younger, which shows the design for a table fountain that bears the falcon badge of Anne Boleyn as Queen. This design was drawn up in 1533. On the same day, Henry also received, from Charles Brandon, Duke of Suffolk, quote, a book garnished with gold, having therein a clock. But that wasn't all, because the king also received on the same day purses of money, in addition to, quote, a silver gilt compass of 69 3/4 ounces, a goodly table of Hercules, a table of our Lord, a tablet of gold with an antic face, a primer of written hand in vellum, a goodly clock, an esposia of gold with a chain, a goodly table of St. Jerome, a tablet of gold with a device of Venus and a Cupido, 2 serviettes, and a marmoset. In the case of the last of these, I am assuming this is making reference to an actual living creature, specifically to a small monkey. On New Year's Day 1546, Henry received this from his daughter Elizabeth. This book, with its hand-embroidered cover, which combines the initials of her father and her stepmother Catherine Parr, contains within Elizabeth's own translation work. This 12-year-old girl had translated her stepmother Catherine Parr's English text, Prayers and Meditations, into Latin, French and Italian, and she had done so in her very own neat italic handwriting. Just over a decade later, at the start of 1557, Elizabeth would give her elder half-sister, who was by this point also the Queen, a, quote, forepart of a kirtle and a pair of sleeves of cloth of silver, richly embroidered all over with Venice silver, and raised with silver and black silk. These were all items that were meant to be paired with another, potentially already existing gown, with the intention of making it look different and thus new. The great thing about Tudor ladies' clothing, and to a certain degree men's clothing, is that because things are pointed in, with laces almost, they can be changed out. So one outer gown might have a variety of different sleeves or foreparts or kirtles, and so every day, with these small alterations, it looks like you're wearing a new gown. In the case of these particular items, the work, the import duties, the use of silver, all of this designates expense and luxury. The woman, the Queen, who got to add this forepart, these sleeves to one of her gowns, would, by design, look magnificent and expensive. On the same New Year's Day, the female artist and miniaturist Lavina Teerlink, about whom I have made a video already, which I will be leaving linked, gave Queen Mary, quote, a small picture of the Trinity, which I am assuming that she had painted herself. And at this point, I think it's worthwhile doing a small bit of comparison, and perhaps we might draw some conclusions from it. It is interesting, I think, that Lavina Teerlink for Mary produces a small picture of the Trinity. But Lavina sticks around in the next reign too, that of Mary's half-sister Elizabeth, who becomes Elizabeth I. And for Elizabeth's New Year's gift, Lavina Teerlink produces another miniature, but this one is not of the Trinity. Instead, it is a miniature portrait of the Queen herself, full length. I wonder what messages she was trying to send to these respective queens through the art she produced for them. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But among the rest of the 1557 inventory, Queen Mary was also gifted, quote, 8 turkey hens, a fat goose and capon, and 2 swans and capons. But to my very great disappointment, within this inventory I saw absolutely no mention of either a partridge nor of a pear tree. Before long, in just under 2 years in fact, it would be Elizabeth that would be the Queen, and it would be she who would thus receive the New Year's gifts as the monarch. She would take centre stage for 45 New Year gift-giving ceremonies, and from these, there are 24 gift rolls that remain extant. As you can probably imagine, that's quite a lot of presents, so I think it's best for us to single out just a few of them for honourable mention here. As I'm sure we all know, one of Queen Elizabeth's most trusted friends was Cat Astley or Ashley. She had been with Elizabeth from her girlhood, and in 1562, she gave her queen, quote, 12 handkerchiefs edged with gold and silver. In 1578, Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, who was a favourite of the Queen, went big with, quote, a carcanet or necklace of gold, enamelled, 9 pieces whereof are garnished with specks of diamonds and rubies, and every one of them a pendant of gold enamelled, garnished with small sparks of rubies and opal in the midst, and 10 other pieces of gold likewise enamelled, every of them garnished with very small diamonds, 2 large ragged pearls, set in a rows of sparks of rubies, and every of the 2 lesser pearls pendant, and a pendant of gold, in every of them a small diamond lozenged, and a small ruby, and in the midst a large pendant of gold garnished with mean rubies, an opal, and a mean pearl pendant, and 6 dozen of buttons of gold, likewise enamelled, every button garnished with small sparks of rubies, in every of them a large ragged pearl. In the same gifting ceremony, Thomas Butler, Earl of Ormond, gave, quote, a fair jewel of gold, being a phoenix, the wings fully garnished with rubies and small diamonds, and at the feet 3 fair diamonds and 2 smaller. In the top, a branch garnished with 6 small diamonds, 3 small rubies, and 3 very mean pearls, and in the bottom 3 pearls pendant. I don't know about you, but perhaps that phoenix jewel rings some bells. I will leave my video on the phoenix portrait of Elizabeth linked. On the same day, the Queen's cousin, Henry Carey, Lord Hunsdon, gave her, quote, a jewel of gold, being a swan of mother of pearl on the one side, the other side enamelled white, one of the wings garnished with small diamonds, and 1 small diamond towards the tail, and another piece of mother of pearl, being a little pot, garnished with small diamonds and rubies. In the following year, Robert Dudley gave, quote, a very fair jewel of gold, being a clock fully furnished with small diamonds pointed, and a pendant of gold, diamonds and rubies very small, and upon each side a lozenge diamond, and an apple of gold, enamelled green and russet. On the same occasion, Thomas Butler, Earl of Ormond, gave, quote, a very fair jewel of gold, wherein are 3 large emeralds set, in roses white and red, one bigger than the other 2. All the rest of the same jewel garnished with roses and flowers enamelled, furnished with very small diamonds and rubies, about the edge very small pearls, and in the bottom is part of a flower de luce, which I'm assuming is fleur de lis, garnished with small diamonds, rubies, and 1 sapphire, with 3 mean pearls pendant, 2 of them small. The backside of a flower de luce, or fleur de lis, enamelled green. In 1600, Henry Carey's son, George Carey, gave his first cousin once removed, quote, 10 large buttons of gold, garnished with small rubies and great ragged pearl. George's mother on this occasion gave, quote, 1 loose gown black of network, flourished all over with Venice gold and silver-like feathers, while George's wife gave, quote, 1 doublet of white satin embroidered and raised upon like flies, and leaves of Venice silver and garnished with white knitwork. It seems to me then that this particular family wanted to ensure that their queen was very finely attired. Money, jewellery, clothing, artworks, pets, etc. Those who served the Tudor monarchs sought out gifts to make a mark, to impress. They did this when they were looking for preferment and promotion, and then they sought out gifts that might grovel when they had done something to incur displeasure. Because the monarch's favour could certainly be an expensive thing to maintain. However, if you managed to do that, the rewards for you and your family could be absolutely extraordinary. So what do you think? What sort of gift do you think that you would have given to a monarch? And for that matter, let's pretend that you are monarch for a moment. What gift would you have most liked to have received? What's the thing that would have brought your enduring favour if you were the one on the throne? As always, I am looking forward to reading your conversations in the comment section underneath this video. or you can come and find me over on social media. I will leave links to all the other places you can find me on the internet in my description box, so please consider following me over on some or all of those so that we can continue this conversation and start some others. I do hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful, and if you did, please do consider sharing with your friends. Please also let me know that you liked it by hitting the thumbs up, and I'd love it if you would subscribe to the channel. If you aren't already, maybe you've been watching, just sounding me out, seeing if you like it, maybe you're still here. Then it's Christmas. And maybe you celebrate, maybe you don't, you want to give me a Christmas gift. Please subscribe to the channel. Also, if you think you are subscribed, this is a perfect, ideal time just to check. Make sure that YouTube hasn't mysteriously unsubscribed you against your will. While you're there, checking, subscribing, maybe resubscribing, please also hit the bell icon that sits beside the subscribe button so that YouTube tells you, allegedly, when I've next uploaded. And I hope that lots of you have stuck around for this bit. If you have, please pop a little thing in the comments on both the live and also the video comments. Put a little video camera, I think, just so I know that you've seen it, because next week's video, that's going to be the last video of 2022, is, I am very excited to say, going to be a live. So if you've heard that, if you know that next week we're going live, then please pop a camera in the comments. And I wonder if everyone's going to try and figure out what that's about. I have signed up for StreamYard, so I'm hoping that we're all going to be set on the streaming front. And I also hope that I have set everything up properly, because if I have, at the very end of this video, you are going to be redirected to another page where I believe there's going to be a reminder button for you to push for next week's live so that you'll be alerted to that. I want to talk about some things in that live because I've got some plans and ideas for new ways to create content in 2023. But I also thought that we could chat about the last year, maybe answer some Q&A questions and simply have some fun together on New Year's Eve. But until then, I do hope that you're going to have a great day whatever you're doing, and I really look forward to speaking to you all in my next video, which will be, of course, a live one. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.